The river looks clean. That's the first lie it tells you. The second lie is that your stomach will warn you in time. It won't. By the time the cramps start, the bacteria have already set up permanent residence in your gut. And in a world without IV drips and oral rehydration salts, a case of waterborne dysentery isn't an inconvenience. It's a death sentence that takes about 2 weeks to collect. Here's the brutal math. A human being needs roughly 2 liters of water per day just to stay functional. More if you're working, more if it's hot, more if you're stressed. And in a collapse, all three are guaranteed. Every water source you find, river, creek, rainwater barrel, flooded basement, is a biological superbacteria, protozoa, heavy metals, pesticide runoff, and whatever your neighbors upstream dumped in when the sewage system failed. Boiling handles some of that, but not all. And boiling doesn't touch heavy metals, nitrates, or chemical contamination at all. What you need is filtration, not the LifeStraw you used twice on a camping trip and shoved in a drawer. Not a sock with sand in it, a real high-volume, gravity-fed filtration system you can build from materials you can find, fabricate, or scavenge. One that keeps running day after day, producing clean water for a family or a small group indefinitely. This is how you build it. Let's start with what you're actually trying to remove, because understanding the enemy is the first step to defeating it. Waterborne threats fall into 3 categories. First, particulate matter, silt, debris, rust, visible particles. These are the easiest to remove and handle by simple mechanical filtration. Second, biological threats, bacteria like E. coli and cholera, protozoa like Giardia and Cryptosporidium, and in some cases viruses. Third, chemical contamination, pesticides, nitrates, heavy metals like lead and arsenic. A proper filter addresses all 3 layers, in sequence, with each stage doing what the previous one couldn't. The system you're going to build has 4 stages. A pre-filter for large particulates, a sand layer for fine particles, an activated charcoal layer for chemical and odor removal, and a ceramic layer for biological filtration. Together, they replicate imperfectly but effectively, the same process that water treatment plants use, the same process that naturally occurs over centuries as water percolates through rock and earth, except you're running it in hours instead of millennia. Let's talk materials. For the housing, you need containers that can be stacked or connected vertically because gravity is your pump and elevation is your pressure. 5-gallon buckets work beautifully. They're everywhere, they're cheap, they're food safe if you get the right ones, and they nest in a way that makes assembly intuitive. You'll need 3 of them. A top bucket for the initial pour, a middle bucket for the main filtration stages, and a bottom bucket as your clean water reservoir. If you can't find buckets, you can use stacked barrels, repurposed water cooler jugs, clay pots, or even carved wooden vessels. The principle doesn't change, just the housing. For the filter media itself, here's what you're sourcing. Sand, in 2 grades if possible. Coarse sand for the lower layer and fine sand for the upper. River sand works. Beach sand can work but may contain salt, so rinse it aggressively. Play sand from a hardware store is excellent if the stores are still accessible. Gravel, coarse, for the base drainage layer, marble-sized stones or larger. Activated charcoal, this is your wild card and your most important layer. You can buy this in bulk, or, and this is the critical survival knowledge, you can make it. Making activated charcoal from scratch is a process, not a trick. You take hardwood, oak, hickory, maple, any dense wood, and you burn it in a low-oxygen environment. The traditional method is a covered metal container with a small vent hole, packed with wood and subjected to intense heat for several hours. What comes out is charcoal, but regular charcoal isn't the same as activated charcoal. Activation is the step that creates the porous microstructure that gives it filtration power. You achieve this by treating it with an acidic solution, lemon juice, diluted vinegar, even a weak citric acid wash, letting it soak, then rinsing and drying thoroughly. It won't be as effective as commercially produced activated carbon, but it will work, and working imperfectly is infinitely better than not working at all. The ceramic layer is where biological filtration happens. Ceramic works because it is a semi-permeable material, with pores small enough to physically block bacteria and protozoa, while still allowing water molecules to pass through. You have two options here. Option 1. Purchase ceramic candle filter elements. These are widely available in survival supply stores and are specifically designed for this purpose. They're rated to 0.2 microns, which means Giardia, Cryptosporidium, and most bacteria are physically excluded. Option 2. Make your own ceramic filter using a technique that has been in use since the 1980s in developing nations and is backed by extensive field research from organizations including Potters for Peace and the WHO. The homemade ceramic filter process works like this. You mix red clay, terracotta clay, the kind used in pottery, with combustible organic material such as sawdust, rice husks, or finely shredded dry leaves, in a ratio of approximately 55%. When the clay is fired in a kiln or improvised furnace at temperatures above 850 degrees Celsius, the organic material burns away, leaving behind a network of microscopic pores throughout the ceramic matrix. The resulting pot or disc is your biological filter. In field tests, properly made ceramic filters removed over 98% of E. coli and similar bacterial contaminants. That's not perfect, but in a survival context, 98% filtration plus the other filter stages, stacked before and after it gets you to a level of safety that vastly exceeds doing nothing. Now, let's actually build it. Start with your top bucket. This is your pre-filter and input stage. Drill or puncture a series of small holes in the bottom. Not too large, you want restriction. Line the inside with a layer of coarse cloth, canvas, denim, cotton sheeting, anything with a tight weave. This is your gross filter, catching leaves, insects, sediment, and large particles before they ever touch your main filter media. This layer needs to be cleaned or replaced regularly. When it gets clogged, water stops flowing. Your middle bucket is where the real work happens. Start from the bottom of this bucket and build upward in layers. At the absolute base, place 2 to 3 inches of large gravel. This is your drainage layer. It keeps the filter media above it from compacting into a solid block and allows filtered water to reach the outlet without restriction. Above the gravel, add your coarse sand, 4 to 6 inches. This handles medium particulate filtration above the coarse sand. Your activated charcoal layer, 3 to 4 inches. Pack it loosely. Activated charcoal works best when water contact time is maximized. You want water moving through it slowly, not channeling around it. Above the charcoal, your fine sand layer, another 4 to 6 inches. This polish filters anything the charcoal disturbed on its way through. At the very top of your middle bucket, before the water from the top bucket enters, you can add a second cloth layer as an additional pre-filter. The outlet from the middle bucket should be a small tap or punctured hole, positioned just above your gravel layer, directing filtered water into the bottom reservoir. If you have a ceramic filter element, this is where it goes, either mounted at the outlet point or positioned as a final stage between the middle and bottom buckets. Wash your filter before first use. Run several gallons of clean water, or the least contaminated water you have, through the entire system and discard the output. You're flushing fine particles from the sand and initial debris from the charcoal. The first few outputs will be discolored. Keep flushing until the water runs clear. Then confirm the flow rate is stabilized. A healthy gravity filter should produce roughly 1 to 3 liters per hour, depending on your ceramic pore size and the turbidity of your input water. That's not fast, but it's running continuously, and in 8 hours while you sleep, it produces up to 24 liters. Enough for a family. Now for the maintenance protocol, because a filter you don't maintain becomes a filter that kills you. Bacterial biofilm, a colony of microorganisms, will grow inside your filter over time, especially in warm conditions. This is the invisible enemy. You need to disinfect the filter housing regularly. A diluted bleach solution, 1 tablespoon per gallon, run through the system once a week, followed by a clean water flush, will prevent biofilm from taking hold. Your sand layers should be removed and rinsed every few months. Your charcoal layer needs replacement when you notice it stops removing odors and tastes from the water, typically every 2 to 3 months of heavy use. Your ceramic element, if it's the candle type, can be cleaned by gentle scrubbing with a soft brush under clean running water to unclog the pores. The homemade clay pot can be similarly scrubbed. Never use soap on filter media. It doesn't rinse out fully and introduces contamination. Here's the science that makes all of this work, and why understanding it matters for your survival. Water filtration isn't magic, it's physics and chemistry and biology working in sequence. Mechanical filtration. Your gravel and sand works through simple exclusion. Physical particles larger than the pore spaces in the media cannot pass through. Adsorption. What your activated charcoal does is a surface chemistry process where organic molecules, chlorine compounds, many pesticides and heavy metals physically bind to the carbon surface and are removed from solution. This is why high surface area charcoal is more effective. Activated charcoal can have a surface area of up to 3,000 square meters per gram. It's essentially a sponge made of nothing but surface, and contamination clings to it. Biological filtration through ceramics works through size exclusion at the micron level combined with natural die-off of pathogens in an unfavorable environment. Most bacteria are between 1 and 10 microns in size. A 0.2 micron ceramic pore physically prevents their passage. Viruses are smaller, 20 to 300 nanometers, and this is where a single-stage ceramic filter is not sufficient. Viruses require chemical disinfection, boiling, UV treatment, or chemical treatment with iodine or chlorine dioxide as a final step. If you're concerned about viral contamination, which you should be in a true collapse scenario when sanitation has failed across a population, add a final disinfection step after filtration. 4 drops of unscented liquid bleach per liter, allowed to sit for 30 minutes before drinking, handles most viral threats. One critical warning about colloidal contamination. Certain sources, particularly runoff from agricultural land, flooded industrial zones, or areas where sewage has mixed with groundwater, may contain dissolved heavy metals including lead, arsenic, fluoride, and nitrates. A standard sand and charcoal filter will reduce but not eliminate these threats. If you suspect heavy metal contamination, activated charcoal is your primary tool, but your safest option is distillation, boiling water, and collecting the steam condensate, which leaves nearly all dissolved metals behind. Know your source water. Know its history. The filter buys you safety from biology. Geography tells you about chemistry. Let's scale this. One 3-bucket system serves 2 to 4 people. A small group of 10 to 15 needs 3 of these systems, running in parallel, or a single large-scale system using 55-gallon drums. The principles are identical at any scale. You can also build horizontal multiple chamber systems using plastic barrels laid on their sides, connected by pipes, each chamber containing a separate filter stage. The advantage is volume. A 55-gallon drum system can produce 50 to 100 liters per hour, enough to supply a small community. The trade-off is complexity and the need for piping and fittings, both of which can be improvised from salvaged irrigation components, PVC pipe, or bamboo in a truly resource-constrained environment. Clean water is not a comfort. It is the most fundamental requirement of human survival, more urgent than food, more strategic than security, more important than shelter in every time frame beyond 3 days. Armies have fallen to contaminated water. Civilizations have collapsed when their water systems failed, and in a prolonged grid-down scenario, the single most common cause of preventable death in the first year will not be violence, it will be diarrhea. That sounds undignified. That's because dying from contaminated water is undignified. It is slow, it is agonizing, and it is entirely preventable. You have sand, you have gravel, you have charcoal you can make from burning wood. You have clay if you're willing to dig for it. You have buckets. You have the knowledge now of how to stack these materials into a machine that produces safe water indefinitely, powered entirely by gravity and maintained by your own hands. Build the filter before you need it. Test it, before your life depends on it. Know every layer of it, so when a stage fails, you fix it without panicking. And when someone in your group looks at that bottom bucket filling slowly, drop by drop, with clear, clean water, they're not looking at a science project. They're looking at survival infrastructure. They're looking at the reason your group is still standing in 6 months when others aren't. Build it, maintain it, guard it like your life depends on it. Because it does.